Hey, welcome everybody. Sorry it took me this long. This is the first time that I'm running this all of this together, and I want to make sure that it becomes a nice podcast. And so, um, yeah, it's a little weird, but I'm Mark. Those most everybody knows me here. This is Ryan, and Ryan is our resident expert on everything radio.
Expert.
But when you start comparing what even some really expert people know, and then ask him about it, and all of a sudden now he has options for you, and so he wants to not say that he's the amazingness,
I just
but
try and provide some practicality, and I don't get bogged down in the weeds and all the technical jargon and stuff because that's not super productive, especially from a normal type of uh, point of view. So
cool. All right, so we're here to do communications. Big part of communications is, of course, radios, and we'll get to that. But a lot of your uh, grid down communications need to be squared away now rather than in the moment. Because in the moment, nothing's going to be available to you. And one of the big things that hopefully everybody was following was the stuff in North Carolina and California, and uh, people like us kind of have watched those kind of things for years. That's why we invest. That's why we do the training. That's why we do that particular thing that particular way. Uh, and what I'm hoping to is to share a few ideas of kind of what you need, entry level, how to get there, because even that base entry level will be way ahead of anybody else. And during, especially grid down, there are, if you're not food prepared, if you're not, family isn't tool prepared, if you are not um, organized, if you don't have the right water or how to get it, if you don't have the ability to communicate with friends, family, or help, you're at a big disadvantage. So the kind of one of those things that in emergencies, FEMA comes to help, right? Not at
help,
all.
yeah.
Not at all. Months and months of people living in tents. So what you need is rednecks. You need rednecks because rednecks have everything, and they're ready to do everything. And woohoo, here we go. So get a little redneck in you, and so you need the shotgun rifle and a four-wheel drive, and probably a radio in that four-wheel drive, and some food, and um, a dog. Yeah, or a tactical cat.
Not our dog.
Your dog's not going for a ride. All right. So starting us off, primary communication, everybody's using their phones, and that's nice. However, have you been to a festival lately? Whether it's anything, hey, Rose Festival or Oktoberfest or anything else, ever try to send somebody a text from those big locations, even though there's uh, specialty communications people that come in to make sure that you have connectivity. Sometimes it's impossible. Uh, Last Oktoberfest, uh, it was so hard just to send a regular text to someone. Just the regular text was near impossible. So anytime you get a lot of people using a particular location, cool. Now what happens when the power goes out? Your cell towers aren't going to last that long. Some of them have backups, yes, but that's not going to last that long. So when the electricity goes out, You might have your phone charged and you might have cool solar power for your charger or for your phone and all that. However, it's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. So you need other modes of communication. What I want you to consider is a when then flow chart for your own family, where you are, when this happens, then we'll do this. Now, just taking this location, there's an Intel across there, there's an airport here. Well, what happens? And I know they have a few things left over here, and especially at the Intel over here. What happens when those big tanks of methyl ethyl nasty blow? Okay, you're going to have power out, you're going to have evacuation, you're going to have chaos, uh, plane crash or something here, everything starts getting shut down. Hey, during air show, everything gets shut down here too. So uh, when something happens, a lot of times you won't be able to make that initial phone call to your friends, family, or whatever. Are you at work and need to get home? Are you home and need to get somewhere else? Do you need to grab your go bags and leave? Because we're doing a class like that coming up too. Because sometimes you just never know. If you live near any type of rail system, okay, something derails right next to you, that's a 2 mile radius, get out now. You have 5 minutes. So emergency communications for first responders, they're on multi-gazillion dollar systems with radios that work all sorts of ways and hows, and they have all the right structure, but are you going to rely on the government entities to help you? And from what we've seen, let's just take the last 5 months. What?
Take the last 5 days, right?
How about the last? You're not going to get anything, you know. And as sad as that is, you're just not going to get anything. Uh, there's groups here in every little city has their own, but there's people who volunteer to help out during emergencies. So there's those type of local groups that are run kind of out of the fire departments. Uh, I've been part of those for a few years now. But okay, so you're specialty trained to help the community in case of something goes wrong. So you're going to leave your loved ones at home and go help others, or you're going to take care of your family first. Those firefighters or police that are at home, do you think they're coming to work or are they going to take care of their family first? So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take care of your family first. And being able to communicate is really top. So during, even when there's, what do you call it? A lot of a big load on your cell towers. Those of you who have iPhones, you send iMessage back and forth, and then it doesn't want to go through. So you can just send it as a text. That seems to work a little bit better. It doesn't use as much. It doesn't need as much juice to be able to send that text. There are other apps out there. Telegram's one of them. Some of you are on the TNT Telegram channel. There's also Signal. Uh, both are good, and there's goods and bads with both of them. But having the ability to jump onto a Telegram, knowing, okay, so you might find power in a desktop, but you still don't have cell coverage. Okay, if you find power somewhere else and there's no cell and everything's linked to your cell phone, how do you link up? You can all sign on to a computer somewhere too. All right. But when it comes down to it, when the power goes out for an extended period of time, all of the technology goes away. The cool thing is that we have the ability to chat with each other, radios. When now these are kind of entry level things,
They are.
just bottom entry level stuff. It's all you need. All right. Somebody like him, he's going to get the more advanced stuff and more things with the bells and whistles. And I don't want his race car because I don't know how to drive it. I want my little easy one that I know how to drive and operate. And once I get really good at that, then I can start branching off,
And
which I'm
also,
kind
these
of
have
doing.
capabilities that my expensive radios don't have. So the way I see it is, it's good to have two, because one is none, or two is one is none, sort of thing. So one of the main advantages of these is these will transmit what they call out of band. So within the U.S., there's ham radio frequencies, and so it's set up in a rigid set. So I believe 2 meters is one. I think it's 144 to 148 megahertz, and you're only supposed to be able to transmit between those frequencies. And a lot of the normal ham radio, you go to the store, you get your normal radio. It will only transmit within those frequencies unless you modify it, and you're not supposed to modify it, but people do, and you can. But so, for instance, there's a lot of other frequencies that are useful to people like us, and frequencies that are used within the general public, um, that you need either a specific radio for that transmits within those frequencies. But the nice thing about these is these will transmit on those frequencies right out of the box, more or less. I've encountered a couple. Uh, there's some the FCC, or I don't want to get ahead of myself, but ham radio people are typically real nerdy, and I don't know if you know that, but they're quite protective of their hobby, and a lot of them look down on these radios. Oh, they're just toys, and it's kind of like uh, trying to think of a good analogy, but they want to they want to look down on these because these cost 20 to 40 bucks, whereas they just spent you know 700
Lots.
on their handheld, and it's like, oh, this is better. Well, yeah, to a point, but not everybody needs that. um, but one of the things that they will do is, um, they will, not, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a section of the ham radio community that takes pleasure in turning people in, because the FCC um, only works on complaints. So if you're doing something illegal, and nobody complains, then it's as if you're not doing anything. But if somebody complains, then they'll investigate, and then they'll do that. But so what some ham operators do is they'll look for people using these illegally, and then they'll find out where you are and then turn you in, and that's fun for them. So that's part of what I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But
They're the HOA Karens of the radio
yeah,
world,
that's
really.
that's true. They exist.
And having encountered a few of them, some of them are way off the rockers.
Big time.
It's too big. This isn't a huge dealio, but it's that they're that nerdy into it that it is that pinnacle of their life that you are bothering specifically. So,
Oh, I remember the point I was trying to make
but
initially.
hey, I have a question.
Sure.
During emergencies, crises, do all those laws still apply?
Not really. I don't know any. I don't know all the specifics, but from my understanding is, if there's an emergency situation, the laws where you can't transmit on the license frequencies are kind of out the window. So I don't know if you still have to use the proper etiquette that a licensed operator does, but yeah, I don't recall if it's just like a natural disaster where the licensing requirements are ineffective, or if it's a life and death situation. I don't recall if there's a distinction between those, but in a general sense, if there's a very significant emergency going on, like if we had wildfires, you know, is use your radio, use any frequency you can reach people on, and if you get in trouble, BFD, you know, deal with the ramifications later if they materialize at all. But
Have you heard of anything during the last emergencies of anybody using, because I've seen a lot of this use. Have you heard any inkling of people getting jammed up for using them during the emergencies?
Not that I've heard.
Um, Going to radios is good, but we're also talking about basic communications. So, how many of you have a alternate one or two rally points for your family? What I mean by that is, uh, you're out at your mom's, your wife is out at her dad's. She has one kid over there. There's another one over there. Nobody's actually at home, and something big happens. Communications go down, and now you're wondering, where's my wife? She's wondering, who's going to feed the dog? Did they get out? So there's a lot of things with that. Uh-oh, we still need to communicate. A lot of that communication can be done beforehand. So that's why I kind of mentioned earlier the when then system. When something big happens and I'm at home, I'm going to stay there as long as possible. Here's what you're going to do. And it doesn't matter who's at home, but that's the when then. Whoever's at home stays at home. If you have to evacuate, where are you going to be? Where's that other rally point that you're going to get to? Uh, I know with my own sons, when something big happens, we know that we actually have three that we'll aim for. And if we're not at the first one, we're going to go to the second one. If we're on the second one, we're going to go to the third one. And that's if everything's gone. No communications are available whatsoever. Because sometimes, hey, you're not wandering around with all of your radio equipment or protective gear or whatever. You're in the wrong vehicle, the wrong car. You're not wearing the right clothes. So you never know, which is also at some of these rally points, you should have more of these. So I think I've lost count of how many I have. And I don't know if you have a count either of how many you have. Lots.
You're looking at all of them.
Okay.
I got probably 6 or 7 total.
Okay. Yeah. And so having the mid-sized family members, they can have their own, or have one available for them. But it's important for everybody to have the ability to connect. On a higher level, these are able to connect certain distance. We'll talk about distances and how they work. But my suggestion is to develop a communications system before the communications go down. And that can be simply too of leaving a message somewhere. If you've ever gone camping, a lot of times there's camping or hiking boards that you can put a message on and leave it for the next whoever shows up. Cool, that works too. So even if it's a handwritten message, you can still leave it with directions. During crises, and the last couple of days I went, and probably shouldn't have because it's depressing reading. How long do you think it takes during crises for people to go feral?
Probably hours.
Some people it'll be real quick. 2 to 3 days. That's all you got until people stop being civil, community minded. A lot of times the smaller that community is, the better it is. A lot of those places in North Carolina, everybody's just still helping each other out. The LA thing, that went crazy quickly. Even while fires were going, looters were still in there. Traveling, hey, there's fires over there, let's go loot. And so the criminal element, the people that are able to tip over onto the feral side, they're dangerous. And during a big crisis, those people get exponentially dangerous. Many years back during Katrina, that was a huge, huge, terrible, terrible thing, and a lot of still hasn't come out about that yet. But I got into a lot of unrest in the Balkans and the former Yugoslavia. I've done a lot. I think you've done some reading on that too. It's kind of a really interesting microcosm of what happens and how people. It wasn't a religious war; it was just a civil war. Sometimes it was a three-way civil war. Sometimes a fourth party jumped in. Sometimes it was two. People were constantly switching sides. So, and that went quite some time with a complete grid down. And people are the same all over the place. They will behave exactly the same. So the more prepared you are, the more links you have into other prepared people. There's no John Wayneing it. There's no lone wolfing. Um, you need the team. You need the group. So that's also what this is connecting to other like-minded folks that you can reach out to, or they can reach out to you. Let's see. Okay, so let's start getting into radios. These are a little bit more um, technical advanced, but I brought in these. I still have these in the vehicle. I still have these at my locations, but the old school, as seen on the original ET radio. CB radio, CB is Citizen Band.
Citizens Band.
And it started off with, I think, 23
I think it was 23
channels. And then sometime in the early 60s, or late 60s, early 70s, they bumped it to 40 channels. And I actually met a few of my very good longtime friends when I was a teenager, chatting at night on a CB radio. And still friends with them to this day. And it's kind of neat. But back then, these are only a certain power. So then, of course, these type of things attract nerds, and the nerds start attracting more power to it, and they started putting like linears on them, and then geez. Bigger, harder antennas, and then blowing away broadcasting, and then it started bleeding over onto the neighbor's television and the guy next down the street. And really, I'm not going to say I had any boosters in my vehicle where I had the CB, but I couldn't use it in the neighborhood. But the amount of talk traffic on one of these things used to be massive, and now
there's somebody on there right now. For now,
yeah.
I used to ride around with my CB on in my truck, and I just flip through the channels, and it's nothing but crickets.
Yeah.
There's very, 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 very little traffic these days.
The longest conversation range I had, I spoke with somebody at government camp, and I was on in the Coast Range on Round Top. Late at night, very few people on, almost direct line of sight, and it was really nice. But around town, of course, anytime you're in and amongst infrastructure, it's not going to work as well. Hills, buildings, they all restrict. So the nice thing about a CB is that nobody really has them anymore. They're still available. You can still buy them.
And you can also use them without a license.
Yeah, and no licensing needed. But they're limited to how far your power can get you. All right, you can hear a lot on it. A lot of times you can't transmit your voice out. So expense, you could still find OG stuff like this, and people are gonna, if like this one's missing a little button on the side, but it's still 100% operative. And I got a few of these, so they're definitely not the 1999 that they were back in 82, but it's you can still pick them up. I mean, I have this unit that's usually in one of my vehicles, and I think I got this one for $50 at Bimart. So
that's
there's
about what that goes for.
Yeah, there's still stuff out there for that. So they're not very expensive. Their range is limited, and the cool thing is not a lot of people have them. So if you're fairly close to one another, these are wonderful. For a little bit more distance, sure you could get into these. Um, yes,
Do you think during an emergency, have to pick up, like that's
Doubtful. That's
doubtful.
very doubtful. Most people don't even have the equipment.
Yeah,
And that's,
that's good.
yeah, that's,
Yeah, that's good. Disney radios. I like to call them Disney radios. Those small little things. They come in the blister pack, and they have like A and B channel, and you can click them. And if you've ever tried to use something like that at Disneyland, all those radios are basically made the same, and everybody's on the same exact frequencies.
those are called FRS radios. It's FRS stands for Family Radio Service. It's an unlicensed frequency band, um, but it's pretty universal. And in the ham radio community, they're called blister pack radios or what have you. Um, but they're also channelized, so you don't have to worry. You don't have to think about, okay, what's the frequency that we're transmitting? It's channel 1, channel 7, channel 22. Um, but the one of the downsides is in order for those to be sold in the U.S., they have to have a non-removable antenna, so it has to be permanently attached. And it used to be the maximum you could transmit was half a watt, but they just changed it to up to 2 watts. And I can tell you that those are most of the radios we use at my work. And the difference between half a watt and 2 watts is significant. I work at a wrecking yard, and we're around big piles of metal all day, and I work on one side of the facility, and everyone else works on the other side of the facility. So being able to communicate back and forth with just half a watt was insanely difficult. Just because all the metal would suck up the whole uh, uh, radio transmission. And these new ones we got, they work way better. So even if my manager's sitting inside of the building on the opposite side of the facility, we can still communicate just fine. I still hear a little static, but that's what those are. And most of the ones you're going to find in the stores are half a watt. But one of the nice things is you can transmit with one of these on those frequencies. And this transmits at either 1 watt or 4 watts. So yeah, you got a lot more power, and you can overpower whoever those radios are transmitting, but you're not supposed to.
All right. Let's talk about limitations for this kind of radio.
Okay, limitations. They first and foremost, I want it to be known, and I want it to be very well understood that anytime you transmit on any of these, there is absolutely nothing that is secretive about it. Anybody could go. I guess you can't go to Radio Shack anymore, but anybody with a scanner can scan the frequencies and listen into whatever you're transmitting. It's very easy. There's no stealth to these at all. So if you think, oh, I'm gonna get a radio, I'm gonna talk to my buddy, and nobody's gonna know, or no one's gonna hear us. No, everybody can be able to hear everything you say. So that's number one. Some other radios you can get. The one I got at home has a scrambler, so it encrypts the transmission, and that's going to be incredibly difficult to crack. But these do not have that. These aren't the most robust radios. So I bought I have a couple, and I've used them at work all day, every day in an outside industrial environment, and I'm on like my third. So um, one of the main problems, or one of the main points that I found of failure, is the battery clip. So if you drop this, the only thing that's holding this battery on is a little piece of plastic under here. And if you drop this, because people at my work have done it, but if you drop it, what'll happen is the piece that keeps the battery in place will break off, and then you can't replace that. So, and then you'll have to tape the battery around the radio, and we had that at work a bunch of times. But um, that was the number one problem that we had. So if you do get these, just remember that they're not the most robust. The problem I had, since I keep mine in a pouch, and that's what I suggest to people, is around the antenna area, the plastic would crack right around here, and then your antenna would be able to flex where it's not supposed to. Like, it's screwed in, but the plastic that it's attached to would flex, and it wouldn't be as secure. So that's when I replaced mine. But they put out 4 watts, which is good. I'll get into power ratings and distance and how it relates to distance a little later.
What about one that plugs into the vehicle? Will these plug into a vehicle?
You can get a battery pack that plugs into your cigarette lighter, but you need to be careful with those, because a lot of them, especially the cheaper ones that you see on eBay and Amazon, what it'll do is it'll take the 14 volts directly from your cigarette lighter and it'll put it directly into the radio, and these, it'll fry these. So you need to get one that has I forget what the term is, but there's a filter that drops the voltage so it doesn't fry the internals.
Yeah, that can work. So, will these work without plugging it into the vehicle? Does the vehicle restrict it when you're inside of it?
If you're using it as it is right here, yes, it's going to limit your range if you're transmitting inside the vehicle. But you know, I couldn't tell you how many times I've driven with friends and whatnot, and most of them have just these in the cab, and we're convoying somewhere, and we're talking smack to each other on the road. But it's fine if you're traveling. That's fine. But if you think just know that it's gonna greatly limit your range if you're transmitting inside a vehicle.
Are there ways to get a vehicle antenna to plug the radios into them?
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of friends that do that, and it's a cheap way to have a mobile, is what they call it. You get a magnetic mount antenna, you put it on the top. You want it in the middle of your hood, in the middle of your roof, to get best coverage. But yeah, you just run the wire in and you plug it into the antenna, and either you can talk, like this, but I find it's cumbersome. So you can get a speaker mic, which is a piece that attaches here, and then what it does is it's like a remote. It's a speaker and a mic all in one, and you permanently mount this somewhere, and then you just got your speaker mic, and you got it. It's up close. You can talk. You can listen if you're having trouble hearing over road noise or whatnot.
Will CB antennas, are they the same thing as the antennas that go with these?
Not even remotely close. Not even close. So CBs operate on the 11 meters. So we're kind of like 20. I don't remember exactly, but it's like 20, 23. It's in the 20 something megahertz range, whereas these operate in 144 to 148 and 440 to 448, I believe. So they're not even remotely compatible.
Cool.
So the
question?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different radios out there. We're talking about the FRS, and now these ones, you're talking about the limitations and what you can do to your vehicle. That's a handheld
Just the handheld, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could use a handheld in your vehicle and it'll work, but you're not gonna have as good a range. Like in my truck, I have a CB radio and I got a ham radio, and I got an external antennas on both. And whenever I'm in a group, I'm always the designated radio guy. Weird, but so there's been times. Actually, there was a time when I was out with my buddies at the Gambler 500, and we got stuck, and we got separated from the rest of the group, and so they were moving forward, and we got stuck in the back, and we needed someone else to come in and tow us out. And since I had the most powerful radio, and so I know most about radios, I was the one that got on the air and said, hey, we need y'all to come back. We need some help here. And they came back, because it, it, it makes a difference.
Okay. I think we've covered those topics. Got a lot of my notes here. The one exception to communications, even during grid down, is satellite phones. Who has one?
Who can afford one? Don't tell them.
I know a guy.
No, yeah, the cost of such things is extravagant. If somebody's doing a lot of way outside of civilization kind of stuff, satellite phones are great. Uh, Cell towers aren't in the middle of nowhere. So a lot of times your connectivity for your phones is just limited to where you live. A lot of you are old enough to remember that you could only use that cell phone within a certain distance from your own house or in that little city, and now it's all over the place. So you brought something up a little bit ago about everybody can hear everything you're saying on CB. When you're transmitting on this, everybody can hear everything you're saying. There's the encrypted radios where that's much better.
Mm-hmm.
But without getting into encryption, we also have uh, operational security. When when there's a grid down situation, when there's a crisis going on, sure, you can open talk as much as you want. But if you're talking to your family and saying, hey, I want to bring all my food over to this location over here with all the guns and stuff and whatchamacallits, and they're asking, well, where is that? Well, you go down the road and take the second right into the dirt driveway, and now you just broadcast that to everybody. So one of those when thens that I always consider is do you remember during World War II they had the Navajo code talkers?
Yes.
All right, well, you don't have to get that extravagant. That code was never broken. But even within people who spoke that language, they didn't know what they were saying. They had different names for everything, and it took a lot of training for them to do that. But that was pretty incredible. So I want you to consider leaning that direction.
Some
In
kind of code system.
yeah, in a in this region, can you use Spanish? Okay, well that's yes, but now it's different. If you know some completely different language, hey, that's cool, and it limits. But really think about different if you have those primary, secondary, tertiary locations to go to. You can have an understanding. Hey, grandma's house is called Two Trees, or go to gravel driveway. So you've already made you've already established what that means. More than that, you can give very specific using preset codes. My boys and I work on a very interesting book code. So the problem with that is it takes some time to create your message. So brevity is really important. But again, that's communications, and that's really the most secure. We all have the exact same book. You have to have the exact same book. All right. So, page 200 has to be the same on everybody's book. Line 5 of page 200 has to be everybody's identical. So it can be the same book and all sorts of different things, but it has to be the identical one. So kind of figure out what you want to use in there. I won't share with what we use, but good luck. Good luck finding what we do. So a little bit of how to speak when you're on there. When you're talking on a radio, you don't ramble. You say what you need. Speak clear. Don't mumble. Take the microphone out of your mouth. Too often when people are talking on a radio, they got to shove it right in here. And it sounds like this. And it's just, no. It'll pick you up just fine from right here. Take the mic out of your mouth.
Also, one of the main things that people do with radios is they think as soon as you hit the button, you start talking. Especially when you're using a repeater, you're talking through a repeater system. Push the button, wait a second or two, and then start talking. And I run into this at work every single day. So the first couple words of whatever your transmission is are cut off, and then you're left to wonder is like, what are they talking about? So when it goes into not only holding it close or far away from your face, keep in mind that you have to push a button, wait about a second or two, and then start talking. Because that way you can guarantee that whoever you're communicating with will get the full transmission. So
cool.
That's important.
Okay, well, let's get into some of these. Who has radios here today? All right. You have a lot of cool stuff. We see a lot of different antennas out there. Yeah. So most of them start off with some little rubber ducky antenna like this, but they're neat. And I do have this kind of one, but most of the time, longer is better.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, most of the time, longer is better.
But it doesn't travel as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the you'll get a greater range, but it's more difficult to carry.
Okay.
Because it'll get in the way of stuff.
So how do you use these things?
You turn it on, you push the button.
How do we know that who we're going to be able to talk to?
Okay, first off, does anybody need to borrow a radio?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You guys good back there? You have something? All right. I'm going to talk through, get everybody on the channel.
Okay. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so everybody turn your radio on. So it's the button on the top.
So hang on just a sec. I'm going to okay, so I'm going to go over your shoulder with this one.
Okay. I'm off keeping it here. Okay. Okay, so I'm pretty sure everybody has the exact same radio. So I'm just gonna use okay. So you got the red button up top. It says VFO/MR. That's vehicle. It's frequency mode versus. Ooh, somebody's on that repeater. Frequency mode versus memory. So if you have frequencies programmed in, this is where you select your from the memory bank or just frequency. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to,
Get right in here.
it's all right. We're just going to go into frequency mode. So you'll see 6-digit numbers, and then there's the blue button that says A and B, and that selects which frequency you're going to be transmitting and receiving on. You got a question? Oh, okay. Anyway, for our purposes, it's not going to matter whether it's on the top frequency or the bottom frequency. So I'm going to have everybody program a frequency that I use off-road, so that way we can all test this out. So an easy way to see whether you're in memory mode or channel mode or frequency mode is if there's little small digits on the far right hand,
Or it'll tell you.
or it'll tell you. I have that turned off because that's annoying to me. So, but hey, if you like it, cool, leave it. It's all good. It's all personal preference. But okay, so everybody type in 151. And then 505. I gotta change this here. So hold on. I gotta change this. Okay, so everybody got 151.505 programmed in? You need to what?
I need the backspace.
Start it over.
What is the bottom line, please?
That's just a secondary frequency, so you can switch between one frequency and another real quickly. So you can have, like for instance, if you're talking to one group over here,
Yeah.
you use this frequency. If you want to talk to this group over here, you can talk to this group on a different frequency.
And that would be AD for
Yep.
switching.
Correct. Yep. And the way you know which channel you're active on is there's a little arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. So does everybody hear me on that? Anybody? Nothing?
5.505.
Yep. Well, talk back to me, will you?
Where are you pointing? The top.
Breaker.
Cool. So somebody knows what's going on.
What did you click the top?
There's the big button on the side.
Hello. How's it going then?
And that's what happens when everybody's transmitting at once. Okay, so everybody transmit one at a time.
Many people.
Testing.
You got it. Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I hear you from you.
Hello?
Not from
There we go. 151.
Listen.
Oh.
Go now.
So this right here is the most basic operational use of radios, and I'll talk you through how to program a repeater because it's also going to be very advantageous, but it's also going to be a little bit more difficult. And I remember when I first got into these things, people said like, "Oh, it's so incredibly difficult to program these with, on the keypad," and it's not really. It's not really. My fancier radios, it's easier. It is, but once you get the hang of programming a repeater on this thing, you can do it on anything. So, okay. I forgot to mention this before, but I'm hearing it right now. One of the significant problems that we have with these radios in particular, and it's these radios in particular, is it's got what's called a squelch problem. So what squelch is imagine you got, how do I describe this? How did I describe this in the past? It's been a while. It's been a while since I taught one of these classes. But so you have a signal, okay, and your signal is from here to here, okay. So this is what you want. So what squelch does is it adjusts, because if you turn it off, it's gonna hear everything, and that's the static that you hear. So what squelch does is it says, okay, everything that's under this threshold of signal, it's going to cut out and it's going to mute the speaker. So, and the more you increase your squelch, it's going to move that floor up and up and up, and so it's going to require a much stronger signal in order to break through and route that signal through to your speaker. So the only way, and I definitely heard it in the back, I could fix that for you. So you got to do it on the computer. You got to manually adjust the squelch parameters, and I couldn't tell you how many I've done that too, because when you turn it on like that and it's just, it's pretty much unusable, and you're not gonna want to use it. So I will absolutely fix that for you. Please talk to me before you leave, and I'll get it taken care of. But that is, if you don't have a computer, if you don't have a way to program it, you're not going to get rid of that.
How do we know what frequencies we can use with our families?
Legally or illegally?
Legally and under emergency use.
So under emergency use, you can use anything. Under your normal use, there's a couple kind of workarounds, really, because like I mentioned before, you can transmit on the FRS frequencies with this, but you're not supposed to. You can transmit on the MERS frequencies, which is the same sort of unlicensed frequency band that you can use that has additional requirements that these do not meet. But there are ways that you can mask this in order to, because if you're transmitting, you can't tell on the other end of what type of radio they're transmitting from. However, these have a couple things that that you can turn off, and then nobody will be the wiser. You know, you're going to need to set up a spectrum analyzer, and that'll tell you what frequency you're on, what power rating you're using, all this other kind of business, and they can. But you need an antenna in the air, and you need a computer in order to figure all that out. Most people don't run around with that sort of thing.
Do you want to go through the menu options on most of these? It seems to be what everybody has.
I can. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah, we can do that now. Just make it real quick. That way they're all kind of set up better.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to do a few things here. You have menu options and settings. And do you want to just go quickly one by one and show them how to get into that?
Okay. If you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. I got it up here, dude.
Oh, you already have all that?
Yeah.
Okay. Of course you do.
Yeah. Okay. So you hit menu, and you get into the menu screen. Okay. So very first menu option is squelch, and that does what I told you before. It adjusts the what they call a noise floor. So it adjusts how much signal is required for it to come through to your speaker. If you set it up real high, then only stuff with a very strong signal will get through. If you set it up low, it's going to let everything in. And if you turn it off, it's going to let everything in, and you're going to be in for a bad day because you're going to be annoyed. Menu number 2 is the step. So what the step is that sets what is it? Selects the amount of frequency range or frequency change in the frequency mode when scanning or pressing the up and down keys. So I use the up and down keys in the middle here. So you know which one is up and which one is down? Okay. Just making sure.
I know. I'll be like I'm 5.
Sure. It's all right. So, but this is something that frankly, something not a lot of us are going to use, because it's not like we're hopping around frequencies like, oh, you know, we're searching for somebody to listen to. But one thing it will be useful for is if you're scanning, if you're trying to make contact with anybody, and if there's anybody on the air, if there's anybody speaking at all, and you don't know what frequency they're on, that's where that would come in handy. But other than that,
Number 2 is
number 2 is the step. So the frequency change in the frequency mode. That makes sense? No?
I'm really bad.
Okay. So okay, I'll give you an example. So I got mine set up for 5K. So all right, so since my frequency is on 151.505, if I hit up, what it'll do is it'll change the frequency to 151.510. If I hit it again, it'll go to 151.515. That's how that works. So you hit up again, it'll go to 520 and 525. You can set it up to, what was it, 2.5. So it'll go from 220, or I'm sorry, 520 to 522.5, or if 5, it'll go 5K, so it's 520 to 525, then 6.25, and then 10, 12.5. Yeah, that's all that does. I keep mine at 5 because you're not going to see, when people are transmitting, you're not going to hear a lot of people that are transmitting in between increments of 5K. Okay. Menu number 2 is transmit power. So this adjusts. Some radios have a low, mid, and high. Mine has just low and high. So what low is transmitting at 1 watt. So when you hit the button, you'll only transmit with 1 watt. So it saves power that way. And high is 4 watts. On some radios, high is 8 watts. And it just depends on which radio you got, but it's all virtually the same.
So how do you select when you're on I want to set it to this? Because you hit the menu and you're going through like 20 different choices all of a sudden.
How do you change the setting on that particular menu item?
Oh, okay. All right, well,
Yeah, it's okay.
all right, go to menu setting 2, transmit. It says TXP, and you hit menu again. So the arrow is pointing down, and then you use the up and down buttons to change that menu item. So I can switch between low and high, and then to confirm whatever you're selecting, you hit menu again, so the arrow's pointing up, and that way you can switch to the next menu. That working for you? Cool. And that goes for anything.
Menu, up, down, menu.
Yep.
They said that they could put menu/select.
Yeah.
What do you expect for a $20 radio, bro? Seriously.
It should speak English to us.
You can.
It does speak different languages. I
can
got
still-
mine stuck once. Question.
What's up?
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Okay, mine's changed the language. Why did it do that?
Because you changed the
You
language.
change the language.
I did.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll have to get you to fix that.
I'll show you how to do that.
This one right here?
We'll
Okay.
get
You know,
there.
I've forgotten how to use this stupid thing.
It's okay. That's why we're here.
I'm telling you, it's
And
really
that's-
bad.
That's, you have a question? What's up? You're on the wrong menu. So it should have a wide setting. So which menu is that? Box. Okay, you're on menu
Got it.
5.
So, also, what you were saying about the squelch? is that the
Squelch,
right
yep.
word? What do we want that set?
I'll just make this simple. Have I touched your radio yet? I have not. So you're probably going to want it somewhere between 4 and 5. If you let me take care of it, and I'll fix the squelch, I'll adjust the squelch parameters. I keep mine at 2, and it keeps it quiet, and it lets everything that I need to hear through.
Okay, right now it's setting on 3.
3, if you're not hearing anything, like I can't hear it from here, you're fine.
So very basic.
Sure.
You give us multiple options, including the device
Yeah.
and the setup.
Sure.
So for someone that never used it before, but interested to like get the first step,
Mhm.
what device you recommend for me and my husband?
Are you talking about
Just like to go to B-Mart,
uh-huh.
Walmart to get one. Like I need to start somewhere. I'm that basic.
Okay. What I would still suggest getting one of these.
Right. And what that called, please?
This is a Baofeng UV5R.
Yeah, Baofeng. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, UV5R is the model, and
Okay. See right here.
there's a ton of these. You can get them from Amazon. Amazon's a great place to get them. Like he
Uh-huh.
posted a link where it's a 2-pack for I think $40,
Uh-huh.
and that's a great way to start.
Okay.
That's a great way to start. And all you got to do is you can plug in your frequency, and away you go. Really, that's about it. And if you have any other questions or whatnot, you can get a hold of him, and he can get a hold of me, and I can help you through literally whatever you want.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So just say I get my pack
Sure.
and then something happens immediately. Then I'm just turn it on and what kind of channel, because you show us the 151.505.
Yep.
But do I have to remember, is it a phone number per se or
No, one way that I've seen people do,
the easiest way?
yeah, what you can do is take the battery out, and you get like a Post-it note or something, and you can put something
Ah.
here, and then write what frequencies you need on there, and then put the radio back on, and that way, oh, well, what frequency do I need? Oh, okay,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I
It's a
see.
real easy way, and you could also put one here too.
And then you can set up any kind of phone number or frequency you want, like
Yeah.
516-777.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and so you just write the frequencies that the important
The
frequencies
couple.
for whatever your situation is, whether you want to talk to us, or whether you want to talk to each other or talk to somebody else. Just write what the frequencies are.
like a phone number.
Yeah, and then just write it on here and just put the battery back in, and that way you take it with you.
Thank you. And I promise this is the last question.
No.
That's why we're
That's
here.
why I went-
That's why we're
Because I
here.
don't want to hold
One of the-
but everyone is so advanced. So my last question is just say I go to that 151.505.
Yep.
And he not there, and I need to get a hold of at least one of you or anyone in the world because I'm stuck.
Uh-huh.
What should I do? Because I then cannot use that, phone number. that-
Let me cover that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get your attention back here again. The what happens when I go to that frequency and the person that you want isn't there? Do they know when to be there? That's the big question. All the way back to the beginning of when this happens, then we're going to do this. When this happens, then we're going to do this. So we have, you could set it up different with your own family, but on the top of the hour, I will be on our chosen channel, because you don't have to have the same channel as everybody else. You can decide, hey, this is the frequency we're going to use, and memorize it.
And for what it's worth, when we go off roading or we go out in the woods or whatnot, we always we're always in a group. We always make sure all of our equipment, all radios are working, and they're all tuned to the correct frequency. That way, we don't have to. Oh well, is so and so listening? And that's why we're able to call my buddy back to come tow us out, because we checked our equipment before we left. You do a radio check. You stop. We stop for gas. We do a radio check when we leave, every time. It's the same. It's the same idea. It's just it's a good practice.
So, for example, you can be, when this happens, we're going to be on our primary channel at the top of the hour for 5 minutes. And so you don't have to sit there for hours waiting. You turn at 11 o'clock, you'll be back on, and you wait for 5 minutes. If they don't contact you, then you wait till noon for 5 minutes. That way your radio is not on and soaking up battery. And you,
I like to wait for 5 minutes.
yeah.
So you're saying, interchangeable, because you said we're on this channel, we'll get this frequency.
Okay, so your just like your television, it has channels on it that
Correspond to a specific frequency.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you're watching channel 8, that's locally, that's KGW, they're broadcasting on that specific frequency to get there. You can't watch KGW on channel 10. So on your radios, they have the ability to program in how many channels?
On these, it's 128.
So you have the ability to program in 128 different channels. For example, the sheet that I have on all my radios, I have all of these programmed in and all of these programmed in. And what's not written down is our memorized family frequencies.
So if they're, you see the radio that you're going to talk to, they'll say the channel 77 is this frequency. They do the channel 77. Like that.
Now, if your family radios are all programmed the same,
You can
like,
absolutely do that.
can I
yeah.
tell you to go to like MERS 3? And
Yeah.
I think we're compatible there. So
Yeah.
we know what that is, but somebody else's MERS 3 might be completely different.
It shouldn't be, because MERS is well,
Yeah, mostly.
some
So,
people
Romeo?
don't know.
So setting up the, at the top of the hour, waiting for 5 minutes, but that's also important, I would imagine, because in a case where if you're stuck, you had a strong enough transmitter to go out, but then the person receiving that signal may not be able to tell you, I'm coming back.
Correct.
So you just got to kind of hope that they heard you, they finally get into range and say, at the next top of the hour, hey, we're heading back.
Yep.
And so I know, like, during an emergency, an hour is a long time. You might decide, hey, when it's this kind of emergency, we're going to do this. If it's just this kind of thing, then we'll just do the top of the hour or whatever number you choose. You can, 15 minutes, 16 past the hour, something. It's whatever you decide.
Mark, so maybe I asked it wrong, but what I'm saying is, in my last question, I just want to catch anyone, because
you need help. Anybody will work.
Anyone would work.
So what kind of channel do we go to for help from anyone?
Part of the ham radio band plan is there's what's called calling frequencies. So what that means is, like, for instance, if I was trying to talk to my friend on the other side of town, I could say, hey, let's talk later or whatever. And what I would do is I would tune into the calling frequency, and that's universal for the entire U.S. I'd tune into the calling frequency, and I'd call out, or I'd call out his, oh, what's,
Call sign.
yeah, call sign. That's, I can't believe I forgot that. I'd call for him by call sign and say, "This is me," and I'd give my call sign, and it's basically saying, "Hey, I'm looking for you. This is me." And once we connect on that frequency, then we can move to something else. So we say, "Okay, let's move to such and such repeater or such and such other frequency that's not on the calling frequency," and that's set up that way on purpose. So if you're trying to reach anybody, those calling frequencies are going to be what you probably want.
What about the Amron Channel 3 thing?
I don't know anybody that
Actually uses it.
monitors those. It's probably a good thing to have, but I don't know anybody that monitors those. I do know for a fact that that people monitor the calling frequencies because that's what they're there for.
Okay.
I monitor the calling frequencies when I'm driving down the road. If I got the radio on, that's one of the frequencies I have tuned because you don't know.
And so people, for example, in North Carolina, when they got into trouble, they might not have been able to call anybody specific. But there's also, remember, there's people that just listen, and they're the cool nerds that are out there just listening. They might be in another state.
Also, the other thing is,
and if you make connection with them, they can get you help.
I was just about to say, it doesn't cost anything to listen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require a license to listen either. So you can have all this equipment, it's fine, and you can listen and monitor, and you're not breaking any laws or anything. But
in a group like this, how do we avoid breaking any law? If we're all talking on the same frequency.
You want to turn the camera off first?
Hang on.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not serious.
Mute. Here.
Wait, so the
GMRS.
So is that
You have access to those.
You have
in there.
access to them.
You have access to all of those in that radio.
But you have to have, technically, you should have to have a license for that.
So for instance, the way GMRS works is it allows you, I forget the power level you're able to use. It's a lot more. I think it's like 20 something watts. But there's two things about it is number one, you don't have to take a test. You just pay a fee. And I don't recall how long the license is good for, but it does expire after a period of time. In order to renew it, you just pay the fee again, and then that's it. But the thing is, it doesn't just license you, it licenses your entire family. So if that's something you're interested in,
But like you said, though, in order for, I mean, there's nobody out there searching for, I mean, maybe.
You might hit the HOA Karen.
Yeah.
But overall, not really.
If you're licensed, you got nothing to worry about because nobody can screw with you. But the thing is, the other thing, just remember what I said.
But if it's an emergency.
If it's an emergency, you're fine. Yeah. But if you make your transmissions short, brief, nobody's going to bother you.
You're not heckling or clowning or doing anything else.
Yeah, if somebody calls you out on it, stop transmitting and turn your radio off. Don't be like, oh, you can't tell me what to do. I'm better than you. Like, oh, you think you got some fancy letters and you could tell me? No. Don't be a jerk.
I do have a question. One of our main uses for radios, we have 180 acres on a mountain, very hilly. I communicating with my kids, so technically, if I'm licensed, they can communicate with me on the same frequency I'm on.
Yep.
Without any other.
Yep.
And having a nice base antenna on your house might help too. Having a nice base antenna on your house.
Yeah. Okay. Not that we've ever been doing that for the last 6 months.
No.
if I was in your situation, I'd just use the FRS frequencies.
So, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
good thing you're here.
Yep. All right. What do you want to do next?
Let's continue going through the menu options since we stopped at transmit power.
There more than that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a bit more.
I think you should have about 40 on most
Yeah,
of
it
your
should be
radios here.
40. So a couple of these are pretty self-explanatory. I got step, transmit power, and then save. This is battery save. It says select the radio of sleep. Selects the ratio of sleep cycles to awake cycles. The higher the number, the longer the battery lasts. When enabled, a word or two might be missed when the frequency being monitored becomes active. So it's essentially waking up your radio in order to save power. I keep mine off, and knowing from what I do at work, like I use these all day, every day. And the big battery like this will last me 2 days at work. And then I gotta charge it up again. So the battery save feature is something I don't use. I've never used it, but you can absolutely use it if you want. But it apparently what it does is it says it'll take a little bit longer to wake up the radio before it like transmits. So I don't like that, so I keep mine off.
And I can also share this list with all of you guys too.
Okay, next item, oops, is menu number 4. This is Vox. It stands for voice operated transmission. So what this does is the mic will pick up your voice and it will start transmitting once it hears your voice. You don't have to push the button in order to transmit. I keep this off because if I say something that I don't want transmitted, you don't want to transmit, don't touch the button. But if you have Vox turned on, as soon as you say something, it'll start transmitting. So I keep this off. Next is menu 5. This is wide or narrow band. So what that means is, so these are FM modulation. So what that means is the way modulation is, you've seen a oscilloscope with the wavy lines and all that. Well, that's modulation. So the way that these transmit the signal is via, it's called frequency modulation. So it uses the frequency you're on and a little bit of the frequencies before and after it. And it moves like this in order to send the signal. Whereas CB uses AM, which is amplitude modulation. So the way it modulates is it stays on a single frequency, but the modulation is the power that spikes. So it might peak at, these are typically 4 watts, or that one's probably not, but your CB is rated for 4 watts, and it might peak at say 7 or 8 watts, and so it might be transmit between 1 watt and 7 watts, depending on what your voice is like. So that's wide or narrow band. What that does is, if you're in an environment that's got a lot of people talking on a very short set of frequencies, this is actually real. What's the word? It's real. It's a big problem in like off-road races. Like when they go to Baja in Mexico, they have a certain set of frequencies that they can use, and each team needs their own. So in order to pack more channels per se within this specific set of frequencies, they use what they call narrow band. So what it does is, instead of, remember how I said frequency modulation is your frequencies right here, and it uses this much before and after it. So what wideband does is it keeps the full range, and what narrowband does is it uses up a lot less frequency space, so you can fit more channels and more people can use the airways. And so that's wide versus narrow band. Next is
ABR.
what?
ABR.
ABR, automatic backlight shutoff. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's like it says the length of time the display is illuminated. So you can have it turned off for 1 second, 2 seconds. Where I got mine at? I got mine on 5.
Mine's at 3, and I'm actually going to change that right here. So I want to go here, and I'm going to go up, up, up.
Yeah, so
Let's
that's
go about 7 seconds, and menu brings it back up. Now it'll last. So let's do this again. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it'll go up. Okay.
all right. Next is TDR. It's transceiver dual reception. So what this does is you have on your display you have 2 frequencies. You got an upper frequency and a lower frequency. What this does is this will allow you to receive transmissions from both the upper and the lower frequency. But one of the things is this only has 1 receiver, so it'll only receive from 1 frequency at a time. So for instance, if you're listening to somebody and something's coming in on the top channel or the top frequency, it'll break through squelch and it'll come through to your speaker and you'll hear it. However, if something is being transmitted after the first transmission has started, if something comes in on the lower frequency in the middle of the top one, it'll wait for the top frequency to finish before it switches to the lower one. So if you got this here, so here's your transmission. So you're going to hear this, all this, and then if the one on the bottom comes in here, you're going to wait until this one's done, until you'll be able to hear the bottom one. I keep this off because it doesn't work really well. My $600 Yaesu has dual receivers, so I can receive two separate transmissions at the same time, and it'll come through the speaker, and they'll just talk over each other. But for a $40 radio, you don't get that. For even my $150 digital radio, it doesn't have that either. But it's something that's useful to a point, but it's something I don't use because the way it works on these is just it's not implemented very well. Okay, menu number 8 is beep, and if you can hear, that's what that does. So when you're switching to the menu, it'll beep. I keep mine on because I like that. Some people turn it off because they don't like it. Choose yours accordingly. Next is talk out timer. So what this does is when you push the button, it starts a timer, and you can adjust how long it goes before it turns off automatically. So I got mine set for 60, so that means I can push the button and I can talk for 60 seconds, and at the 61st second, it will automatically stop transmitting. And it does, what that's useful for is so it doesn't, if you wedge it in your couch cushion or your seat or whatever, stop.
It won't hot mic you.
Yeah, it won't hot mic you, and it won't kill your battery. So I keep mine at 60 because that's a nice middle ground. It goes from 15 seconds to 600 in 15-second steps. So I keep mine at 60, and I've never.
Yeah, remember, again, you're looking for brevity, and nothing's worse than trying to communicate and somebody's just rambling, or they got a hot mic and you're listening to them singing their favorite song in the background.
That happens at work a lot.
Yep. And so having that timeout just kills the transmission, and then they're able to hear you. go, dude, what's wrong with your radio?
Okay, the next two menu items, they're similar. So R is receive, and DCS stands for digital coded squelch. So mutes the speaker of the transceiver in the absence of a specific low-level digital signal. If the station you are listening to does not transmit this specific signal, you will not hear anything. It's the same thing for.
Should we have it set on or off?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Don't. And menu number 11 is the exact same thing, but it's just a different type. It's called continuous tone coded squelch, and what that does is that essentially embeds a subaudible frequency into the signal. And so if you're transmitting that signal and the receiving radio isn't set up to receive that signal, you're not going to hear anything. And it's the same thing with the DCS, the digital coded squelch. It's just two different ways of doing the same thing. I think there's 400 and something levels of the DCS. Let me see here. Yeah, it's something ridiculous. But for our purpose, as it sits right now, we don't need it on. When we start programming repeaters, you will need to know how to turn this on and off, and you'll need to know what to set it at, because that's how repeaters know when to wake up. Is you'll send a transmission on a specific frequency, but you need that code in order to tell it to wake up, and it's listening for a specific frequency or a specific code that's embedded in the transmission.
Since you're running up on time, do you want to show everybody how to do that real quick?
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay.
All the things that we're going over, what all the little menu items are, I can send that out to you, and I can post that I'll have that part of the video up, so you can scroll through that and you can look at the sheet or have a good idea of what those things are and what they kind of should be set for. No, not really. And after you start going through them, you'll like the voice activated thing. I have mine turned off because I don't need somebody listening to me afterward. 'Cause after I'm talking, like you might unkey, and then if your Vox is on, it'll pick you up saying something again. So it's always good. Like Ryan was saying, a lot of the beeps that he hasn't turned off.
Some people like the radio to talk to them.
Yeah,
I don't.
And that's okay either way. But also, having somebody sitting next to you or in the same room fiddling with the radio. I know I'm talking about the parent ear here. And you start getting that winky eye and like turn it off. It's bothering me. The cool thing about these radios as well, the side piece over here can connect to an earpiece, and a lot of you had some sort of earpiece that came with your device when you got it. So, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to show everybody how to program in this repeater that I was telling you about earlier, the one with the very, very wide coverage. Okay, so first things first, grab your radio, turn it on. Now remember we were set to 151.505.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I want you to plug in, so type in on the keypad 147.040. Okay, and do not transmit on this frequency yet. Okay? 147.040. 147.040. Okay, everybody on it?
Mhm.
Okay, now we need to go to menu. Let's see. Okay. Now we go to menu number 25. It should say SFT-D. And what that is called, it stands for shift direction. So the way repeaters work is you'll transmit on one frequency and then you'll receive on a different frequency. So what you're doing is you're telling the radio, it's like, okay, the shift direction is either above or below the frequency that's programmed in right now. So we want it. So go to menu 25, says Shift-D, hit menu again, so the arrow is pointing down, and we want it to be plus. And once you hit menu again, you'll see a little plus sign above the T. That's how you know you've done it right.
Did you have a question? Okay.
So everybody got the plus above the T?
You can see the plus above the 7 now.
Yeah, above the 7 or T,
Mhm.
whichever.
The 147.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Mine is just because reasons. Okay, so all right, next is the what's called offset. That's menu number 26. And the offset for the 2-meter band, which is what this repeater is in, is 0.600. So what you want to do is you hit menu again, so the arrow is pointing down, then type in 000,600. And so you'll see offset on the top, and then on the bottom you'll see 000.600. Hit menu again, so the arrow is pointing up. And so now what you have is you have your offset and your offset direction. So what that'll do is that will point, or when you hit the button, you'll be transmitting on the frequency that the repeater is listening for. Okay. Okay. Oh, there's also a code that we got to type in here. So where is it? Okay, so now go to menu 11. It says R-CTCS. That stands for, what did I say before? Continuous tone coded squelch. So that's the, okay. It's all good. If you got any more questions or whatnot, just contact him and he'll contact me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
So menu 11.
Yeah, menu 11. So we need to tell the radio what tone we want it to embed into the signal so the repeater will be able to hear it. So hit menu again. So the arrow is pointing down. You go up till it says 100 hertz. Once it says 100 hertz, hit menu again. So the arrow is pointing up, and you will see a CT right next to the R, or the up pointing arrow. That's how you know you did it correctly. Right. That's why, and that's why I'm pointing this out, is because that's how you can tell you've done something correctly.
Okay.
Okay. So now we got to do the exact same thing for menu 13, which is T for transmit. That was it, the coded squelch. So you hit menu again, and go up to 100 hertz. Hit menu a second time. And so now, just to double check, you can check menu 13. This is T-CTCS 100 hertz. And then go to menu 11. It'll say R-CTCS 100 hertz, and that's where we need to be. All right.
Okay.
So now,
Are those numbers different for every repeater?
they are different to every repeater. They're set by the repeater owner. So the information's all online.
Does this particular repeater have a name?
K7RPT. That's the repeater's call sign. Its own K7 repeater, right? So this particular repeater, one of the major advantages of repeaters is this particular one is set on top of, I think it's the West Hills. I think it's the West Hills. It's at a height of 850 feet, and it transmits at 500 watts. So what that means is when you push the button on this and you're talking to the repeater, that turns your little 4-watt handheld into 500 watts.
How do you find repeaters?
Repeater book. It's a website, repeater book, and you can type in your zip code, and you can type in radius within that zip code. It'll show you all the repeaters that are online and even the ones that are offline, all the ones that are registered in that area within that radius.
You have to speak up.
Does it give you the numbers for like all the different?
Yes, it'll give you all the information you need for to program a repeater into your radio.
Did you ask permission to that repeater owner?
No. If you're licensed, you're fine. If you're not licensed, don't use it unless you need to. But yeah, repeaters are, and all that information is open to the public. Now, one thing is if the grid goes down, this particular repeater and a lot of repeaters have emergency power. So a lot of them have solar panels and whatnot attached to them. So they'll continue to operate even if the grid goes down, or if the power grid goes down, I should say. A lot of them do, some don't. One of the other things is there's repeater nets, and there's one in particular, I forget, it's the W7PRA. It's a Peak Radio Association. That's a ham radio club. They operate a series of repeaters in Oregon. I don't recall the exact number, but they're all linked. So what that means is if you transmit to one repeater, you're transmitting to all repeaters in the state. So you're talking to the entire state if you're talking to one single repeater. But the thing is that's all done via the internet. So if the power goes down, they're not going to be linked anymore.
Would you be willing to reach out and make contact with somebody using that right now?
Yeah, I'll have to program my own, but
yeah,
I'm not gonna. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's already programmed in here.
Okay.
Okay. So
turn this one off.
make sure.
And I'm gonna end the recording here as well.